but a lot of regular Saturday night events out there might only have 100 viewers. Yeah. It's a hard, cold fact. A special event might get 2,500, and that's a big deal. It's not enough to really wow a sponsor, but you tell them you got 200 million active users. What's that sticker on the car now valued at?
Ladies and gentlemen, you wanted it, you got it. The place for the untold, real, raw, and juicy stories of dirt track racing. It's Dirt Track Confessions. And now here's your host, Mandee Pauch Mahaney.
Hello everyone, welcome to Dirt Track Confessions. I'm your host, Mandee Pauch Mahaney. So really excited for this week's guest. He is one of the most popular sports announcers, and I would definitely add businessmen out there. And you know what? I don't know if many people know this. He's actually from Utica, New York, right smack dab in the heart of Northeast dirt modified country. A man who needs absolutely no introduction, Ralph Sheheen. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Mandee. Great to see you again. You and I have been friends for, years. Not trying to date either one of us, but it's been a long time. And I've certainly known your dad and your husband for ever and a day. But yeah, you're right. You've done your research. I was born in Utica, New York, and then raised out in Sacramento, California, and now living in the Charlotte, North Carolina area here in the town of Mooresville, Race City, USA.
I expect no less, of course. So, Ralph, what I always like to do when we have our guests on is I always like to kind of paint a picture for our listeners, just have them understand all that you have done for our sport. And now I know I say this ever so lightly because I'm sure it's kind of hard to do like a Cliff Note version of what you've accomplished. But can you maybe start from like the bottom? Let's date back to New York at some point in time. Like, how did you get involved in racing, and how the heck did you end up to where you are now?
I don't know. And I feel incredibly lucky and blessed to be sitting here doing this interview with you and having that question asked of me, because as a kid growing up, of course, you dream of having the career that you want and where you think it'll take you, where you hope it'll take you. But to actually have seen it unfold, this is my 36th year on national television. And to think that I got even 2 years out of it is crazy, because it is such a challenging occupation. It's no different than your dad, for example. When he started, he probably thought, maybe I'll get to do a season or two of this. But to see how long it's gone and how many accomplishments he's had and everything, I'm sure he would say the same thing. It's remarkable. And when you look back on it, you shake your head thinking, I don't know how I did it, but by the grace of God, here I am, So it all started really when I moved to California. I was only 11 months old when my folks moved out to California. But all the aunts and uncles and relatives are all still in upstate New York. So I know the area very well, feel like it's a big part of my life. I know where all the good restaurants are and all the good racetracks and all that. But when I got out in California, of course, everybody wants to be the driver. But I figured, boy, that's really hard to do. And my family, my dad wasn't very mechanical that way. So it's like, the thoughts of getting a go-kart or a TQ midget or something, that was out of the question then. And then he passed away when I was only 12. So that was definitely not going to happen. So the broadcasting side kind of opened up after that. I thought, if I can't be the driver, maybe I can talk to the driver or talk about the driver. And so that kind of got me interested in the broadcasting side of things. And I just kind of started pursuing it. Went off to college and started PA announcing all over Northern California and lied my way into my first TV gig on ESPN. And 36 years later, here we are.
That's amazing. So what did you go to college for? Was it for broadcasting?
I went to California State University, Chico, which is where they're holding the Gold Cup this weekend, the big sprint car race. And I double majored in broadcasting and public relations. And I did that because I thought, well, if the broadcasting side doesn't work out, I could do PR and still be involved in motorsports or sports in general.
Smart.
So it was a fallback.
Well, I'm glad you didn't have to use your PR.
Well, I have used it over time as side gigs and that sort of thing. But to be honest, the best training is baptism by fire, just diving in there and doing it. They can only teach you so much in a classroom about doing live television and how that's going to work. I mean, it's 36 years of the grind. It's that 10,000 hours thing that everybody talks about.
Yep.
And it's very similar to when you think about a rock band. Take a band like an Aerosmith, and it's playing all those clubs and doing all that road work and being out on tour and playing all the little joints that set you up for when you play the big arenas and the big stadiums, right? Mm-hmm. Same thing here, doing all those little dirt tracks and short tracks around the country for $20 or $50 or no money. I did a lot of those too. That is what really sets the tone for how you're going to be able to be on the air when you're doing the Daytona 500 or the Indy 500.
Spot on. Listen, Ralph, I remember, I think I was in my second year of college, probably changed my degree about 10 times. And I told I think it's the counselor, what I wanted to do. And he literally looks at me, he's like, you may as well just drop out. Because I told him, I'm like, I want to be involved in racing. And he's like, you need to know people. I'm like, okay, well, I know enough people, you get yourself in the doors, but I still am a firm believer, I went to school for public relations too. It helps to have the degree, but yeah, it's the grassroots. You have to go out there and start from the bottom and work your way up.
No doubt about it. I mean, college is great on a lot of levels. It teaches you a lot of things, but there's some things that they can't put in a textbook. So you need both. I mean, the great thing about college, I was able to do internships at television stations while I was doing that. That was incredibly helpful. That I wouldn't have been able to do unless I was in school, because they're all set up through the school. And the experiences of just being at college, right? Just interactions with people on a social level and living on your own for the first time, all that sort of stuff played a big part too. It put me in a position that when the opportunity came to move to Charlotte, I was single, I was young, I wasn't afraid to do that. And that's because I'd gone off to college, right?
It's true. So true. So I'm super curious, Ralph, is like, I don't know if you've got a calendar out there of where in the world Ralph is like every week. you might need one if it doesn't exist. But I use my air quotes ever so lightly. Like, what does a normal week really look like for you? Because I'm sure it varies week by week.
Oh yeah, and the first thing is it's an old school calendar. I still write it all down. I'm not one of these guys that puts it in his phone and every morning that tells me where I got to go to do based on an alarm. I'm scratching and rewriting that calendar almost daily of what's coming up and changing and all that. The weeks are never the same. Some things are similar every week, like prep work and that sort of thing. But even that, it's 24/7, 365. You can't, let's see, I've got coming up in 2 weeks, I've got the Springfield Mile for American Flat Track, doubleheader event. You can't just start studying for that the week of the race. You have to be on top of that, reading about it, going through the internet, reading books, talking to people on the phone, doing all that sort of stuff. It's all year long. And then, later in the year, I might do an IMSA race or an IndyCar event. So I can't suddenly start up on that week. If I'm not looking at IndyCar stuff in January, I'm not going to be ready for it if it happens in October.
Wow. So in the beginning of the year, do you know where you're going to be the whole year ahead?
I have an idea.
An idea. Okay.
Like this year, I knew I was doing all of American Flat Track, so I was able to pencil that in. But then there's always events that come up out of left field. Even with American Flat Track, all of a sudden they added the street race, the Sturgis TT 2 weeks ago. When we announced the schedule for 24, that was not on the calendar. It wasn't until I think April or May when they said, yeah, we're definitely doing that. So all of a sudden, what was supposed to be one race at Black Hills Motor Speedway on a Tuesday night ended up becoming a full week in Sturgis and a race on Tuesday and a race on Sunday. So you never know. I got an off-road race now that just came up out of left field that I'm probably going to be doing in October. And it looks like, don't quote me on this yet because contracts aren't all signed, but the folks at World Supercross are telling me that looks pretty good that I'll be back doing that. So that means in October and November, all of a sudden now I'm going to Canada, Australia, and Abu Dhabi, which none of that was on my calendar 2-3 weeks ago.
Wow. Okay. My wheels are turning because I would do the old school paper calendars. The problem is that where, I don't know if you know this, like where our house is, Ralph, we're 5 hours from the race shop,
Yeah.
right? So Mike, my husband and I need to be like on the same calendar. We have the whole year ahead, but then we sit down at the beginning of the month and it's like, okay, where are you going to be? Where am I going to be? What makes the most sense? So like, how does that work? Like with your family life, we
Yeah,
can't.
and my wife and I get asked that a lot from people. Then when they first meet us, my wife especially, it's like, how do you deal with your husband being gone all the time? And what she has always said, and I think there's a lot of truth to it, doesn't matter. As long as it works for us, that's all that matters. What works for you and Mike is all that matters. What worked for your mom and your dad is all that matters. What works for me and my wife Kimberly and our kids, Lucas and Olivia, that's all that matters. We have found a way to make that work. They understand what I do. And as she also says, look, this is what he did before I met him. I can't expect him to change who he is and how he makes a living just because we're getting married. That's can't teach this old dog any new tricks at this point. I got a really big birthday coming tomorrow, Mandee. It's over. This is who I am at this stage of the game. So
now.
There's no changing it now. And so we've just figured out how to adjust it. When I'm home, we try to do a lot of stuff. Fortunately, yeah, you're gone on the weekend, but you're home during the week. So you take full advantage of that. For 15 years, I did Supercross. And the great thing about Supercross was it was out on Friday. There's no question you're racing on Saturday because we raced in rain, snow, sleet, everything. Wow. And you're home on Sunday. So that meant Monday to Thursday was family time, and we did a lot of cool stuff.
That is nice.
Plus, we try to find ways for the family to come with me every now and then during the course of the year and do things. Like my kids have always traveled with me individually, or we'd go as a whole family. And like my son Lucas would come with me to Supercross events, as would Livy. And I'd pick a city where there was stuff to do. So like he'd come to the Detroit Supercross with me and go to the Henry Ford Museum, go to a Red Wings game, make it more than just do the race, try to find something for them to learn about or experience while they were there.
I think you and my dad took a page out of the same handbook because he always did the same thing. Whenever we'd travel, if he took the family with us, we you go out to Williams Grove, there's these places you stop at, you go to the amusement park, whatever it is,
Yeah.
It's the only family time we got, so we use it out.
But they're great memories too, right? I mean, my kids still talk about all those trips, and when you look back on, you go, okay, good. We got through that. Okay. If that's what they're remembering, we did our job.
Are you enjoying this episode, want even more, or want a closer connection to the DTU fam? Join us over in Club DTU, where you'll receive early access to all of our podcasts, live race day updates, exclusive content, special merchandise, discounts, a community chat, personal recognition, and so much more. All inside one place, Club DTU.
I love that. So, okay, if you're okay with sharing, Ralph.
Yeah.
So I'm sure life of Ralph Sheheen's not always sunshine and rainbows. I don't know if anyone's life really is every single day.
No.
What type of challenges have you, I don't know, faced in the past with the lifestyle that you have?
So the worst part is obviously the same as part of the best part, and that's the travel. Mm-hmm. I love to travel, and travel is great. It's really good when you're doing it as a vacation with your family or your friends. But when it's business travel, it can be a grind, right? So much of it is, leave the house, airport, hotel, rental car, quick dinner, racetrack, hotel, back to the airport, back home. You don't always have time to go see the sites that you think, oh, you just went to, I don't know, St. Louis, you must have climbed the arch and done all these great things. No, I've been to St. Louis a bunch of times, never had time to go climb the arch. I've seen it, never been to the top of it. But there are opportunities when you can do things, and I'm very grateful for that because I have had the opportunity to go places like Sturgis, that I always wanted to go see, not just because of the rally, but I always wanted to see Mount Rushmore, and I wanted to see Crazy Horse and all that stuff. And I got to do that on this past trip because we had enough time to do it. And I would not probably have been able to do that if it wasn't for the fact AFT took me there. I've been to cities like Milwaukee and Cleveland and Cincinnati that are not necessarily places you would go on a vacation, but when I've been there, I've had cool experiences and I've learned something about the city and the people that I wouldn't have known otherwise. So I feel very fortunate about that. I've been able to travel different places around the world I never would have gone to. I'm going to go to Abu Dhabi here in a few weeks. I've never been there. That's going to be amazing, right?
Okay.
So that's really cool. But being stuck in airports, eating dinner by yourself so many nights, I can't begin to tell you. Stuff like that, that's what wears you down. Rental car miles, all that sort of stuff just wears you down and beats you up. And I understand when guys get to a point where they say, I just want off the road. I totally understand that.
Yeah, it's a grind. It's a grind, and you really have to love what you do.
Well, you love it when you get there and you see your friends and you see the competition. You get to tell the stories and do your job. Wally Dallenbach, who I did a lot of NASCAR stuff with over the years, had it perfect. He used to say, we do the broadcasts for free. We get paid for the travel. And he is 100% correct. Because when that red light goes on, it's time to call the race. That time's magical. That is so much fun. But all that other stuff, if you could just beam yourself there an hour before the broadcast, that'd be great.
Just when you figure that out, you let me know.
Exactly.
So, all right. So for those that are watching this, we can see Ralph rocking all of the swag, which has me wanting to circle too. Is, I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, but was it back in like 2012 when you and Joe Tripp acquired Speed Sport? Is that correct? Around there?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're right.
So I feel like since then you guys have done like monumental stuff there. Now,
thank you.
Can you kind of tell us like what was your vision 2012 going into it, and like how have you feel it's played out in the last 12 years for you?
So we did probably the dumbest thing you could ever do, and that's buy a newspaper in the digital age, because that makes all the sense in the world, right? But that's what we did, and it was all because of that red square logo that we knew this is what was significant, which at the time was just known as National Speed Sport News, but everybody called it Speed Sport. When Chris Economaki passed, and Chris had been a great friend and a mentor and all that, Corinne, his daughter, it had been a family business, and she didn't really want to run the business anymore. So she was looking for somebody to take it over to shepherd it forward. So she sold the brand, this red square, to myself and Joe Tripp. And we just kind of were like, okay, what do we do with this now? We knew everybody loved reading the paper, but that was over.
Mm-hmm.
We knew we wanted it to become a full-on media brand, full-blown media company, which meant video had to come into play somewhere. So we started by getting rid of the paper and doing the magazine, Speed Sport Magazine. And we shortened the name to Speed Sport because we felt like it was more than national and it wasn't just news. It was this bigger entity now. So the magazine went well for a while. We did 10 plus years of the magazine, and that went really good. During that period, Sprint Car and Midget came up for sale. So we bought that, brought that in-house. We figured couldn't let that die, another big brand. And if we didn't buy it, he was closing the doors on it on Monday.
Wow.
That was crazy because I'd just seen him, Doug Auld, of course, who owned it. I'd seen Doug at the Knoxville Nationals, and we always had our booths next to each other. We were very good friends and supported each other. And I was like, hey, how's everything going? Because I knew, everybody's struggling. But how you doing? He's like, oh, everything's okay. I'm like, great, okay, good to hear. And then literally get back from the Nationals, and like 2 weeks later, he calls me and he says, do you want to buy Sprint Car Midget? If you don't, I'm closing the doors on Monday. I'm like, what? hang on a second. I got to call Joe. I'll get right back to you. Called Joe, and I was like, dude, somehow we got to figure this out. So he figured it out, what Doug needed, bought his brand. He stayed involved with us, kind of propped up Sprint Car Midget and Speed Sport Magazine at the same time. While we were doing that, of course, you had the website going and social media and all that. And then we got into streaming a little bit, and we started doing some TV shows for some of the other networks out there, like MAV TV and a couple of the others, CBS and some others. And the streaming thing was good, but we weren't really ready to dive headfirst into it. Then we partnered with a guy by the name of Chris Grainer, who owns a company called Rivet. Mm-hmm. And Chris is really kind of the godfather of the whole streaming industry in motorsports. He was like one of the first guys to get in, so he really understood it, which is what we needed to know. So we partnered with him, and we started speedsport.tv, which is still available as we sit here today. And what we did there was we partnered with a bunch of racetracks and sanctioning bodies and promoters around the country who all needed streaming services. And we went to them and basically showed them how to prop up their own TV channel. So you could take a Utica Rome Speedway, for example, or Boone Speedway in Iowa, where they have everything they need now to go live on a given Saturday night with their races, but everything gets funneled through speedsport.tv. So the viewer goes to speedsport.tv and they sign up for imca.tv or uticarome.tv, whatever it might be. You can buy all of the different ones, or you can buy individual ones to watch. And then we handled all the back of the show stuff for these tracks, the billing and invoicing and the pay and all that, and just send out the money to the individual promoters. Take all that nightmare out of their hands. We handle all that for them. But they're doing their own broadcast, and we've set them up with all the equipment and everything they need to do that. So that's really been working well. But we knew that people were just tired of paying in general. So what's the next step? Fast. Free, ad-supported streaming television. It's a new way of doing business. So cable's going away, satellite's going away, fast channels are the new deal.
Yeah.
So Roger Warner, who started Speed Vision back in the day, which became Speed Channel and then FS1, and he started, he was the second president of ESPN. He was a part of starting HBO. He started Outdoor Life. He did Torque TV and Motor Trend TV. He really knows what he's doing. Roger and I have known each other for 30 some odd years, and we had a meeting over lunch in Monterey during the Historics one year, about 3 years ago, and he said, hey, I want to do a fast channel, but I need a brand. He said, you got the right logo. Do you want to do this together? Heck yeah, let's do it. Yeah. So that's how Speed Sport 1 got started. One little meeting in Monterey, California. And the concept behind Fast is it's literally free. So it's free to the viewer, free to everybody at home. What happens is we've partnered with these major platforms out there. So Pluto, Amazon, Fubo, Sports Tribal, Sports.tv, Stir, Sling. They all provide the platform that the viewer can then go to and access the content. That's my responsibility, providing the content to the channel on that platform. So you go to Pluto, you download Pluto onto any device, your computer, your TV, your phone, whatever you're watching on. And Speed Sport 1 is free to you to watch on Pluto, Amazon, Sling, all these different platforms out there. So you get free racing 24/7, 365, and I'm providing all the content. Pluto, Amazon, Sling, they're providing the distribution. So right now, Speed Sport 1 is available to over, you ready for this? 200 million active users right now.
That's insane. Holy crap.
And it's all free. It's all free, Mandee. You don't have to pay a nickel to watch.
That's amazing.
So, I mean, most people who are probably watching this have one of those already, whether it's Amazon or Sling or Pluto. You probably have more than one. And they're all free. And then Speed Sport 1 is part of that process. It's right there. It's free programming. There is no charge to watch.
Wow. Okay. That's amazing. That
And
like
we've
just
got all kinds of racing on there. So we've got racing from all around the world internationally. We've got German touring car. We've got Australian supercar. I've got motocross, superbike racing. We've got all the grassroots racing from America, sprint cars, midgets. We've had big block modifieds. We've had everything on there you could possibly think of.
wow. Now how that was gonna be my question is like how do you decide like are you partnering with these tracks? Like how do you decide what gets aired essentially?
Yeah. So the stuff from Europe, for example, most of that we've had to go license, like Australian supercar or German touring car. That we've licensed from those sanctioning bodies to be the distributor of it here in the U.S. Somebody else doing it in Japan, somebody else doing it in Brazil. All the stuff here from the U.S., that speedsport.tv platform I was telling you about, all those promoters that we've been working with over there went, you got how many viewers? When they hear 200 million active users, they're like, we're going to move this race over here if you want it. You can have it for free because we want those eyeballs, because then we can go back to our sponsors and say, hey, Bob's Garage or Domino's Pizza or whoever's sponsoring the racetrack, we now have 200 million active users watching. So instead of charging you $500 for that billboard on the backstretch, we're going to charge you $5,000 and everybody's happy.
Wow. Okay. And that's in just this launched in like 2023, didn't it?
So here's the story on that.
Okay. Give us
Here we are in 2024.
Yeah.
2022, I had that lunch meeting with Roger Warner in Monterey. December of 2022, we go to the PRI show and we announce to the world we're launching Speed Sport 1. Everybody's stoked. People come running, what can we get on? Can we do this? Can we do that? And we said, first thing we got to do is lock up all of our distribution. Then we'll come back and we'll start doing all these deals. So the distribution starts looking like it's going to go just great. Well, we had one major platform that we really wanted to have say to us, hey, if we take you guys right now, this was like May. So we take you right now, would you go exclusively with us to the end of the year? We're like, sure, absolutely. They're like, great. Okay, let's do that. So we're like, great. This is going to be fantastic. What a great launch and all this. We're waiting for contracts. Summer's months are going by. Nothing's happening. We're like, guys, what's the deal? Oh, well, we just launched 4 new networks, so we're kind of on hold right now. We're like, oh. Meanwhile, all this time is slipping by. We go, what are the 4 channels that you launched? And remember, this platform wanted live sports, which is why they were interested in us. And they said, well, we took the Game Show channel. We took the Antique Roadshow channel. We took Hollywood Squares channel. And, oh, yeah, we took the Godzilla channel. So now it's September. And we're like, you guys are killing us. So we said, okay, we're out. We got to go get these other platforms going. We'll talk to you later. So we literally had to start all over again to court all these platforms. So we started in the fall of 23, beginning courting all these people all over again. So we're literally a year behind. And then by spring of 24, Long Beach Grand Prix weekend, we launched on Sling, was the first one. Amazon came on in May. Pluto came on in June, and it's just been a rocket ship since then.
Okay, so you actually didn't kick off until this year, and you have that many. Holy smokes, that is insane.
Yeah, we're up to like, I think nine platforms right now that are carrying us, and there's only like 3 or 4 more to get.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, so now I'm curious is, let's just say Utica Rome. We're just going to go with the Utica theme here. What if they want to be on it? Like, what steps would they have to take to do that?
Make a phone call. Let me know you want it. And I would love that.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, I think at this stage, a lot of the racing community, not everybody, but a lot knows that we're doing it. They maybe haven't seen it yet or haven't really heard all the numbers yet. I mean, it's grassroots buildup, right? It's got to be organic. It's like everything. once you do it, it takes time for it to bubble up and everybody to realize what you've done. But once they tune in and see it and realize how cool it looks, it's all free and we can do your races live. I mean, we did the 24 hours of Nürburgring and the 24 hours of Spa back in the summer. We showed every lap live and free, all 24 hours.
Wow.
But it's incredible. I mean, if you love sports car racing, it was mind-blowing.
Yeah.
You know, so we can show everything from Utica Rome live if they want it, no problem.
Mm-hmm. That's impressive. That's really impressive.
Okay. Yeah, it's cool.
I'm excited to see where this goes. Like this, I feel like something like this is a whole new level of live streaming. Like I know you pay attention, Ralph, but like with the dirt modifieds, like since COVID, so what it's been 4 years, that's when our live streaming finally took off. Like people are finally like, if there's, I mean, granted, like there's a few tracks up here, Ralph, that still are like no live streaming. Like we're stuck in the 70s here, but you're raising the bar. That's huge.
Well, you know, there's a couple of reasons why we're doing it. Obviously, we think it's a great business model, but here's the other thing I've thought a lot about with this. With all this streaming that's out there, even with our speedsport.tv platform, race fans are having to spend a lot of money to view all this racing on top of buying Netflix and Hulu and ESPN Plus and the NFL package and whatever else they buy, right? So before you know it, you've spent $500,000, $700,000 a year to watch motorsports. You're not going to the races anymore.
Yep. We
need the race fans at the racetrack. That's where we really want them to be. So I'd rather have you watching Speed Sport 1 every now and then when you're home for free, save $40-$50 somewhere on your streaming money and take that and go to Utica Rome and watch the race. Go watch Mike and Billy battle it out and have a good time and eat some popcorn and buy a t-shirt and support the track, support the drivers, support the sport.
This is huge. Okay. We're going to have to circle back on this like this is good.
Well, I mean, we got to get this word out to the fans, and listen, it benefits everybody too, because think about the drivers in this case. If your husband or your dad is out there racing and they can say to their potential sponsor, hey, there's 200 million active users watching all of this. What's that sticker on the car now valued at?
Yeah.
A sticker that was maybe worth $1,000 might be worth 10 grand now.
Yeah.
Maybe. Sponsors certainly going to be a lot happier about it.
Yeah, that is one thing I feel a lot of the tracks lack promoter wise. Like the track should be telling, like one of the series up here, the short track super series, like Brett Doe, he'll usually say like, all right, these are the unique viewers that we have. Cause then I can go and put it in our marketing package and say, hey, look, like your average racetrack's not telling us that.
Well, listen, I can tell you for a fact. Yeah, you go to the Chili Bowl or you go to the Snowball Derby, those streaming numbers are big.
Yeah.
Those are big, okay? They're not Daytona 500 big, but they're significant, right? But a lot of regular Saturday night events out there might only have 100 viewers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a hard, cold fact.
Yeah, that's so true.
They're not getting 10,000 viewers every dirt track in the country. It's not happening. It might be 100, it might be 50, but a special event might get 2,500, and that's a big deal.
Yeah.
But it's not enough to really wow a sponsor. But you tell them you got 200 million active users. Now, granted, not all 200 million are always tuned in.
Yeah.
But the potential is there, and that's what's exciting to the sponsor.
That is huge. Okay, so that has me wondering. Let's tie in. I think you kind of touched on it, maybe ever so slightly. It's like the rise of social media. I don't even know if there's a rise. We're there, right? We're living in it. I feel like fan engagement. And I'm sure you've seen it. Like I feel like it's shifted quite a bit over, the last 5 years. How do you feel you guys have adapted or are going to adapt? With the networking. Like to keep fans engaged?
Well, what I want to do is, so first step for us was the distribution. Without distribution, we were nothing. We now have the distribution. The next step is just a cash flow cycle, right? Getting enough money infused into the series of the network that we can go do things that we really want to do. We've got a lot of ideas of our own shows and projects that we want to film, produce, put up on the network. Right now, we are 90% race events. Majority of those are live, but it's all green to checker flag. That's the other thing about Speed Sport 1. There's no builder shows. There's no car restoration shows. There's no, guys throwing wrenches at each other and yelling and screaming while they're doing custom motorcycles. There's none of that. It's all racing, 100%. But there's shows about racing. We have a show called GP Confidential. It comes from Europe. It's all about behind the scenes of Formula One. So we have a couple shows like that, but we want to do some shows here out of our own studios that talk about American motorsports the way we want to do it. And with those shows, I want to get fan engagement involved, starting with social media to drive them. Maybe it's fans producing content for us that gets shown during the show. Maybe it's, show us your seat at Williams Grove. What are you seeing right now? And we show that live in the middle of a show.
Yeah.
We've got some pretty cool ideas like that where the fans can actually engage with the live studio broadcast or a live race broadcast. Just takes time and money to get all that ramped up and rolling.
Yeah. Okay. I'm seeing like the path we're taking here, right? You're on the ground. Okay. So
yeah.
I actually recently did a podcast recording on this because every time, Ralph, you have to come when the Super Dirt Car Series, the Short Track Series, whenever we go to Canada, Ralph, it is absolutely insane. I mean, for modifieds, it's insane.
Yeah, yeah.
And the hype of it, and just the aura and the people, and they make it like such an event. And I feel like, which I feel like you're gonna get into at some point of like growing the atmosphere and the interaction like you're talking about. But like, what do you feel? Like you said, you do flat track, you do all kinds of different various racing. Like, what do you feel the fact, like the one, not one, but like a good factor is that contributes to like a really successful type of event that like everyone comes in?
You have to make the event more than just the race.
Yep.
It has to be a happening. When you look at the ones that are truly, truly successful, they're a happening. Now, whether that's musical acts or things for the family to do in and around the events, it could be a million different things. And you kind of have to look at your individual event and say, what works in this market? What's important with this type of series? What do our fans really want? Because it's not always going to be the same at every particular event. And you can't just do it one year and think, oh, there it is. Mm-hmm. It takes time to organically grow that vibe that comes with that particular event that makes that event special. The Chili Bowl is what the Chili Bowl is. The Knoxville Nationals are the Knoxville Nationals are, but they're not the same in any way, shape, or form. Daytona is very cool, but Indy's very, very different. They're both huge, huge motorsports events, but they're nowhere near the same. Yeah. There's so many things that Indy does that Daytona doesn't do, that makes Indy, to me, different than Daytona. Nothing against Daytona, just saying that Indy, when you go, I took my son there for the first time this year at 18, and he's like, I get it. I see what you've been talking about. Yep. You just have to be there to experience the things that they do there. But look, it's taken them 8 years. This was the 108th event, whatever it was, to build that up. So it doesn't happen overnight,
Totally makes sense, because that's my wheels are turning of like, we have marquee events like the late models, the sprint cars, the modifieds, but I feel like for us over here, like our little short track racing corner in the Northeast is they fluctuate. They don't keep them consistent. And like you said, you have to build it. You have to keep showing up and and build that reputation, and people are always know this is the weekend. Like,
Well, you
this
had
has
it,
to be.
you lost it.
Yeah.
It was Syracuse.
Mm-hmm.
Syracuse was that event.
Yeah.
And everybody knew Super Dirt Week at Syracuse, that's it.
Yep.
You know, and fortunately I got to experience that. And once you did, you were like, okay, I see. It's not Knoxville, it's not Chili Bowl, but it's those events for the modified families, and they're doing the same thing their own way, right? Now, Oswego is doing a great job of trying to take that and move it to a new venue, but it's going to take time because it's not the same in any way, shape, or form. But thank God somebody's at least trying, right?
Yeah, that's so true. So true. So, okay. All right, you were in New York for a whole whopping 11 months of your
Yeah, but I
entire.
know where Grimaldi's is at.
Okay, but like you're talking like Europe, flat track, all of the things. But like, what does short track racing mean to you?
It's at the core. None of the other stuff happens if it wasn't for short track racing being at my core. First race I ever went to as a kid was Sacramento Mile for what then was known as dirt champ cars. Mario and AJ and the Unser brothers and Johnny Rutherford. 1969, Mandee. Oh my God. 1969, I'm there. Yeah. As just a little kid sitting in the grandstands, watching these cars going around, the dirt's flying everywhere, and these guys are wrestling these things, and there's this bright neon orange STP car going by, and I'm like, who is that? And I'm in. And my dad walks me down after the races, across the mud and into the pits, and there's Mario, and I'm like, that's my guy. That's it. That's my guy. So then from there, it's like, okay, where else can we go to races? My parents are like, you like that? I'm like, yeah. So we start going to West Capitol Speedway and Placerville and Chico and San Jose and all the dirt tracks around Northern California, and then we found the drag strip at Sacramento Raceway. So Nitro is a cool deal. And so now all of a sudden, Don Perdome's a hero. Okay, we're going watch the funny cars every time they come to town. And then we discover Sears Point. The Indy cars actually run over there. All right, we go over there a couple times a year, and then down to Laguna and down to Ontario. You just kind of, like every racing family or family that's interested in racing, as your interest grows, you start exploring and finding out and going to new places and getting new experiences. And there isn't a form of racing I don't like, but if it wasn't for that first trip to a dirt mile, none of it happens.
Spot on. Okay, so we're gonna give my opinion here. We're not gonna categorize anyone on this, but I mean, Ralph, I don't venture much. There's no time. I wish there were for me to venture outside of our little short track world. But I feel like our fan base, we don't really have the youngest fan base, right? Like, a lot of tracks are still doing the typical, like we talked about, the old school promoting. And I feel like we have the same fans that have been coming through the gates for over 30 plus years. I mean, me included, that they just keep coming. They go to the same spot, but I'm not seeing a whole lot of like new blood, new people coming in, and it like my wheels are always turning, and I'm sure yours are too. Of like,
oh, of course,
what strategies are there that would be effective enough to like attract younger or a more diverse audience into our world?
I don't think it's all doom and gloom. I mean, I think depending on where you go, yeah, probably right that some of the more traditional Saturday night venues are struggling, except for when they have a big touring show come in, right? Then they get a little bit of a broader audience. They still get their core, then they get a few more. I think if you go to Knoxville or Tulsa for Chili Bowl, I hate to keep bringing those up, but
it works.
They're the two biggest events in that grassroots world, right? Snowball is probably the same way, Snowball Derby, the pavement and late model guys. But you go to events like that, and I think you do see kids in the grandstands doing the flag waving and, buying the T-shirts and getting the autographs and doing all that. And that's great. Hopefully, I know I've done it with my kids. You know, as soon as you get them old enough, you're dragging them out to the racetrack with you and hopefully get them hooked. Mine certainly got hooked, and they got hooked on all the right stuff. So both of my kids, you'll like this. Their first race ever for both of my kids was the Knoxville Nationals.
I mean, you're raising the bar for them.
Hey, I was like, and God bless my wife, because my kids are both born in May, and they went to the first Nationals that August.
Oh my
so they
God.
were like 3 months old when they went to the Nationals for the first time. So she had a lot on her hands, and she knew it was important to me to be able to say that my kid's first race was the Knoxville Nationals, and we pulled it off. But, you know, I think I'm fortunate, as you are, that we're able to give them a different kind of perspective and experience when they go that not every kid's going to get. So that changes things a little bit, of course. But I think racing is such a it attacks all your senses, right? And you have to have that happen. I remember taking Lucas to his first drag race. I tell this story a lot. He was probably 4 years old, and I dragged him over to Z-Max for the 4-wide. He had his little, headphones on, bigger than his head, and he's up there in the grandstands. And first set of 4 funny cars go by, and he looks at me, eyes this big, and he goes, "Daddy, my tummy tickles." And I went, "Got him. That's what it takes, right? Mm-hmm. To feel that inside, smell that. It's not just seeing it, it's hearing it, smelling it, feeling it. No matter what form of racing it is, whether it's a big block modified or a Cup car at Talladega, you got to have that full-on experience. And that's why I love it, to tie it all back, with Speed Sport 1, that we can help you save $20 so you can go to the racetrack and have that experience and maybe get a buddy to come with you.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to get them there.
Yeah, I feel like that's a lot
Here's the other thing. Now you got me going here a little bit. One of the things that Supercross did so very, very well, and I used to talk to all the short track promoters I could come to about this. Supercross was always in either an NFL or Major League Baseball stadium. Mm-hmm. Big block modifieds can't do that, unfortunately. But that was something they were very fortunate to have. They didn't build that. They just got the luck of being able to use that. But they also made sure the show started on time at 10 after 7, and at 10 o'clock, if we weren't done, heads were rolling in the production meetings after. Mm-hmm. Because they knew their grandstands were full of families. And then mom is sitting there looking at the watch going, "Oh my God, it's 10:30. Oh my God, it's 11. We're an hour away from home, and I got to get these kids to bed. It's going to be midnight, 1 o'clock. I'm toast tomorrow." Right? Yeah. Can't do that. Show's got to start on time. Hustle up through the program, get these folks home. It doesn't matter if the show is 4 or 5 hours long. You're not giving them their money's worth. Give them a 2.5-hour great show. Send them home happy that they're not destroying their whole night and their family's regular process. Let them stay the course, and you'll be better off. You'll get them back.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. What the Super Dirt Car Series has been doing, Ralph, I really respect them for doing, is we have platinum drivers that follow the series. And so like kind of they've been trying, this is like the third meeting we've had in the past year. And we sit down with them for a good hour and they ask us like, okay, how are ways we can improve? And they're talking to the drivers that run the series, which is huge. And one of the things that Mike had brought up, he was like, we need to like guarantee that we're going to be on the track for the feature at 9:30. And they're like, that's not possible. And I'm like, well, how can we make it possible?
It's possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's ways to do it. And everybody's got to be on the same page and pulling in the same direction. Mm-hmm. And you know what? Hey, if you call the lineup at 9:15 for the feature to roll off at 9:30 and that guy's not in line, sorry, bud.
Yeah.
You'll be there next week, won't you?
I hope so.
You know what I mean? I mean, sometimes you got to do it. Everybody's got to understand, for the betterment of the sport, we've got to all pull together, buckle up, get a little out of our comfort zone, and do this. And everybody's done it. Like NHRA did it. NHRA knows that after every round, these guys have to tear the cars down, basically rebuild the motors and do all that. And they crunched the time down on those guys. They've got it down to within inside of an hour in between rounds.
Wow.
Which is, I mean, those guys are thrashing, and it's hard on them. But you know what? They prove they can do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a better show for the fan.
Yeah.
You know, Major League Baseball, cutting down on the time between pitches. All those things are hard sometimes to do, but it's better off overall for the sport.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work, go back to the drawing board and come up with something else. But at least you got to try. Flat Track took a big stretch up in Sturgis doing this race through the streets downtown Sturgis where 95% of the racetrack was on pavement. And the guys were not happy about it.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? It was a spectacular event. There was people everywhere watching. It was on Big Fox, and it did a huge amount to lift American Flat Track up. And it's opened up tremendous doors for them. So they all had to buckle down and, you know, maybe not be too happy about it in the process. I get it. But in the long run, it's going to make a big difference for them.
Yeah. You don't know unless you try it.
That's right.
You don't know. So, okay. Now, I'm curious, is of all the races you've gone to, and I don't know, that you've worked out, whatever it might be, like which, if you can boil it down to one, if you don't want to, you don't have to, but like which one has stood out the most to you?
Indianapolis 500.
Okay, that was easy.
There's just nothing like it. And I've been very, very fortunate as a sports fan. I've been to the World Series. I've been to the NBA Finals. I've been to a couple of Super Bowls. The Indianapolis 500 is, to me, it's absolutely magical. It is unlike any other sporting event in the world. You just have to experience it to totally understand it. You can watch it on TV and you can get it, you know, here back home again in Indiana and all that. But man, there is something about being either on the grid or in the grandstands. I've done both. When that happens and there's 400,000 people there, and all of a sudden everybody's a Hoosier for the next 3 minutes while that song is being played, you know? Mm-hmm. And it's such a patriotic event. It is all red, white, and blue all the way through because it's Memorial Day weekend and they're paying homage to our troops. And I mean, I get goosebumps and choked up just thinking about it because when they play taps and you hear, get this, you hear 400,000 people be dead silent out of respect.
Yeah.
Out of respect.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible. It's incredible. Then after that would be the Knoxville Nationals.
Okay. At least I've done that. I've got that, and I got to get to the Indy. I got to get to Indy.
And I've been fortunate to call your dad at Knoxville. So that's a very special venue to me too. Mm-hmm. And I also get asked, okay, what would you do if you could do a whole season? What would you do again? It'd be Supercross, because every week you just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, the best thing those guys did is they lined everybody up this way. It seems like a little thing, but you got 22 riders in a gate going this way, all headed to this point.
Yeah.
Turn one. It's pure chaos. And that's the best thing for the fan and the broadcast because, oh God, here they all come. And inevitably somebody's going down and causing craziness to happen. And then somebody's got to come racing back up through the pack. It's just super exciting each and every week. Then my second thing to do for a whole season would be sprint car racing.
Of course. Yeah.
Just because California kid, that's where I grew up. Sprint cars are near and dear to the heart.
Of course. I love that. Okay. So I don't know, I might have to take a summer off and just not go to a modified race and just try all these things because.
Well, you got plenty of time.
Okay, thank you. All right. I'll have to, you can send me like a to-do itinerary of where I must go.
Oh, I can fill out a season for you, no problem.
Fantastic.
And that's one of the things I always tell people who are not maybe necessarily race fans. And you talk about how do we get people involved? I tell them, look, racing is very different than stick and ball sports, right? With stick and ball sports, everything evolves around the ball, and for all intents and purposes, football, whether it's pro, college, or high school, it's the same game. Yeah. 100 yards, 7 points for a touchdown and an after point, right? It's the same game. There's no similarity between a dragster, an Indy car, and a big block modified. They all have wheels and a motor, but it ends there.
Yeah.
So if you go to a stock car race and you didn't enjoy it, okay, stock car racing is not your thing. Go try a drag race. Go try a dirt late model event. Go try a vintage car race at Lime Rock. You never know. Who knows what you're going to like, but give other things a try. If you don't like basketball, doesn't mean you're not going to like baseball.
It's true. That's true. There are some sports I'm like, I'm a race car person.
I'm not a soccer fan.
I don't follow. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so amazing. So basically, Ralph, at the end of every episode, I always like to give our listeners just like a little piece of something to leave them with, like some kind of advice. So whether our listeners are aspiring racers, broadcasters, journalists, or they're just the good old avid fan, what is one piece of advice that you would like to leave them with?
Well, behind me here, I have a wall full of books. You talk about, how do you do this? Is constantly reading up about racing or things that I think can help me with my career. And in one of the books over here is a bunch of NFL coaches that gave kind of coach speak advice kind of stuff, an inspirational book. And so I was reading through that, and there was one coach, I believe he was with the Vikings, and he had 4 Ds: dream, desire, dedication, and determination. And I use those 4 Ds a lot, and I think they really work. You got to have the dream, right? You got to go, hey, I want to be Mandee Pauch. Okay. Or I want to be Billy Pauch, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, all right. So how are you going to do that? Well, that's where you're going to come up with the desire. You got to have the desire that on Monday morning, after having that dream come into your mind over the weekend, you're actually going to get up and start doing whatever it is you got to do to have that dream become a reality. Go to school, get a job at a race shop, work at a race, whatever it is, you got to start the process. Then you got to have the dedication that you're not going to just get up on Monday. You're going to get up on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday and the following Monday to keep at it, because it's not always a lot of fun getting up crack of dawn, traveling like we talked about, whatever it is to do to get those jobs. And my first jobs, I got paid nothing, Mandee. I announced a motorcycle road race at Sears Point after driving all the way from Chico, where I was going to school. 750 entries. Couldn't read any of the numbers as they came by. I talked from 8 in the morning till almost 8 o'clock at night, because during the summer. And I got paid a box lunch. That was it. But here I am today. So you got to have that determination, right? You're going to keep going. Or the dedication. Then you got to have the determination. And the determination is the final one and probably the toughest one. Because inevitably, certainly in my case, the rug is going to get yanked out from under you for the dumbest of reasons. You're going to lose a gig. You're going to lose a ride. I can only imagine how many rides your dad and your husband have lost over time for no good reason. Not because they weren't performing, but because somebody else wanted a different driver or didn't think this or didn't like the way they comb their hair, whatever the case might be. It's going to happen, right? It's probably happened to you. I know it's happened to me numerous times. So what are you going to do? Are you going to sit around and just be, well, that's it, I'm out? Or are you going to get back up and say, okay, different path, same goal?
I like that. So can you send me what that book is? Because that sounds really good.
Yeah, I'll have to find it over here. But yeah, I'll do it.
Pull it out of the bookshelf, because I'm all about the personal development and I love that stuff. It's so good. Yeah,
I'll find it for you.
Thank you. Okay, Ralph, thank you seriously, sincerely so much for taking the time to hop on here and chat. It has been absolute pleasure. It's really exciting hearing all that you've done, all that you are doing, and then all that's coming. I really appreciate everything that you do, and I wish you well. And I really, really do hope that somewhere over like the next few months, like we cross paths. Your wife's going to have to send me your calendar so I know where you're going to be. But
well, are you coming down for the World Finals in Charlotte?
I am.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We're going to pencil that in. I will come find you.
I'll be out there for that.
Great. Well, thank you again. And thank you for everyone for tuning in. If you enjoy this episode, please be sure to share and tag us. And we will, of course, catch you right back here next week. Thank you again, Ralph.
Thank you, Mandee. It's great talking to you. Please say hi to your dad and your husband for me. And don't forget, Speed Sport 1, start watching.